Hello!
You there, and welcome to
A Spoonful of Theatre,
Singapore's only theatre podcast.
I'm TJ, theatre practitioner and director.
And I'm Sam, a teacher of language, literature, and self-proclaimed show business lovey.
This is our podcast where we spill the tea on all things Singapore theatre. It's tea time!
And today's episode is titled Ivan Heng, Rising to the Occasion.
Because we are interviewing the legend himself, Ivan Heng.
Yes, as its 2026 season is in full swing, it is our privilege to welcome the driving force behind the long-running theatre company and the community it has striven to build.
But for now, pop the kettle on
Grab a picky
and let's add a spoonful of theatre to sweeten up your day.
TJ, we are back in the studio, and oh my god, I've been so excited for this one for weeks.
Me too. You know, when we started this podcast, these are the sort of people that we dreamed, like,
Yes.
maybe one day they might want to, grace us with their presence. And we have Ivan Heng about to arrive.
Oh my god. Do you know what? I remember the first time I saw Ivan on stage, and it was you that took me to it. It was La Cage aux Folles.
Ah, yes.
And I'd never seen that on the stage, and I wondered how a Singaporean cast was going to be able to put on that show, and it was wonderful. And there's so many other cast members that I've that I've seen do other productions, and I'm so happy for Ivan to come and join us.
Absolutely.
Oh, what do you think is? Oh, what do we want him to talk about?
Oh, do you know what? I really want to find out, obviously, a little bit more about Wild Rice. I really want to know how it is running the theatre, because, obviously it was a theatre company first, and now we have a theatre. The ins and outs of all of that. But I think the topic on everyone's conversation now is the future of Singapore theatre.
Yes.
Where are we going, with the closure of Pandemonium and things like that? I want to see what his opinions are there, because he shared a wonderful post a few weeks ago.
Yes.
So I've got plenty of questions to ask him as a theatre geek. Sam, as an audience member, what are you excited to ask him?
The stories that Wild Rice are telling, they've been such powerful stories, and I think of the mirror that Wild Rice has sometimes gone, hi Singapore, have a look at yourself, and then and what conversations that starts, and we've had those conversations. We've had those conversations in our reviews.
Yep.
So I can't wait to hear his story about the stories he's telling. That's what I cannot wait to hear.
Well, let's not wait any longer. The kettle's boiled.
Yes.
I think he's almost here.
Oh, I can't wait.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have the legend himself. Ivan Heng is here with us here. Hello, Ivan.
Hello, TJ. Hello, Sam.
Hello, I have been excited for this for weeks and weeks. I have wanted you in our studio from the very beginning, Ivan.
Very happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. How are you?
I'm well. Had a busy day at the office.
Yes.
Yeah, and it worked, but no complaints. I've had a great day, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, you've just come. This is not long after the Rice Ball.
Not after the Rice Ball, and we wound up Red Riding Hood over the weekend.
Yes, you have. Yes.
Yeah.
So your
and
season is in full swing already.
Yes, we open in 2 weeks for the Christians.
Yes.
So we're excited. Yeah.
So tell us more about the Rice Ball, because that suit you wore, that beautiful eleganza suit. Where did you get that made?
Frederick Lee. It's an honor to wear his creations. He dreams up something every Rice Ball for me.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
marvelous. And
Yeah.
how was the night itself? Was it? Did you feel the energy?
I think there was a real sense of community in the room. We're going through very, very troubling times. When I chose the title, Spring Awakening last year, already the dark clouds were gathering, and I thought a theme like Spring Awakening would lift everyone's spirits.
Yes.
But of course, things have just gotten really dark.
Yes.
And, in a troubling time, I think people really felt just a sense of community coming together to do good.
Yes, of course.
And the beautiful thing about the Rice Ball is all the guests go to the shows.
Yes.
So they know what they donate towards. And they know why they're invested. And so the only thing that we can do is to sing for our supper, in my case, do a little twirl.
Brilliant.
It honestly looks like a fantastic night. So obviously you're 26 years old as Wild Rice this year.
Yes.
Have you been doing the Wild Rice Ball since the beginning, or is that something that came a bit later? And
2002.
2000. Wow, so very early. And I
Yes.
feel like, is it one of those things that has grown every year and has become a bit of a beast?
It has become quite gargantuan. But I think everyone just has such a great night. We always have to turn on the lights at the Shangri-La Island Ballroom and say, go home.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't end, you know. I mean,
Wow.
after there's this huge concert, and then there's a club night, there's a, dancing by DJ Keith Colasso, and then we serve Teochew porridge.
Oh, wow.
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 And people drink and eat porridge and dance and eat and drink porridge and dance, and it's great. It's
So it's a
great.
proper night out.
Yes,
Marvelous.
yes.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, I was reading up on your biography, and I did not know this about you, that you were once a lawyer.
I was never a lawyer.
Oh.
I went to law school.
Oh,
Ah.
right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
That's
Okay.
a lawyer answer of getting some
Yeah.
detail with that.
Yeah. After law school, I handed my mother the degree and I said, Mom, this is for you. Now I have to do what I have to do.
So it was already within you that you wanted to move into performing arts.
Yeah. When I was in law school, I think I had a bunch of friends. Elvin and Haresh, who founded The Necessary Stage. Keng Sen and myself and Claire Wong were in Varsity Playhouse. And then in third year law school, I, auditioned and got a part in a theatre works play called Army Days.
Right.
And that was, I think, the seminal moment for me. When it's a play about national service,
Right,
and it
right,
speaks to everyone's experience, whether you have been through national service, or your mother, or your girlfriend, or your sister, or your brother. I mean, everyone knows national service. But the interesting thing about that play was, I played Malcolm Peng, and he's the narrator. And I mean, I think the beautiful thing about this play was that all these characters, so Johari would be talking in a Malay accent, and Kuma would be talking like this, Indian accent. Yeah, and Abeng is like this. And then there was Malcolm, right? Malcolm is a middle class ACS boy. You know?
Right.
My name is Malcolm Peng. I live in Bukit Timah, off Namli Avenue, of the BKE. My father is a civil servant and my mother is a geography teacher. My hobbies are stamp collecting, and sometimes I also do outdoor activities like bonsai. And, so I mean, the interesting thing was that we had to workshop my accent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was 1987 and there were not many Singapore plays.
Ah, of course.
So what did, what exactly should Malcolm sound like? And now we all speak like this, right? As educated Singaporeans, this is what we speak. But at that time, this accent was not seen or heard on stage.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Do you know? So we had a workshop about this accent. And it was so interesting. And I say that this is kind of seminal for me because performing in this play was electrifying. I felt seen. I felt heard. I felt like I was part of a community. We really felt so intimately connected with the audience who were like cheering and laughing. And I think that really informed my journey and my practice, of telling Singapore stories. Yeah.
So then, if you fast forward, so this was 1987, you say. So then,
Yeah.
fast forward then to 2000, which is the birth of Wild Rice.
Yes.
So, from that perspective, do you see it as paying it forward, so to speak? Like, is coming from that
Yes.
seminal moment?
Yes.
Is Wild Rice Ivan Heng's way of paying it forward to the Singapore theatre?
Totally indebted. I think that we were just so, it's part of our decolonization, right?
Right.
Just to say, we are proud, we are Singaporean, we don't have to perform plays, from America or from England, Singapore theatre is multilingual, also not just English. It's in Chinese. We have Malay Singapore theatre, but then there's also, English Singapore theatre. But I think it's not so much paying it forward as the fact that, I started Wild Rice because I didn't feel that we were telling enough of our stories and that we were not giving the wonderful talent here enough opportunities. So I started a theatre company because I really wanted to create a home for Singapore theatre, a place where a community can come together to tell and listen to its stories, to feel a sense of belonging, to feel pride, to see ourselves in all our diversity and complexity, and be alive to the world that we live in. Yeah.
I must admit, this is something I've said to TJ a lot. This is something that I adore about Wild Rice, is the local stories that you are telling. But you're also, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, you're also holding up a mirror, I find, a lot of the time to Singapore as to Singaporean communities.
Yes.
Has that always been easy? I'm thinking supervision, for example.
Yeah.
And Wild Rice has told some very challenging stories that has kind of held up that mirror.
Yes.
Has that always been an easy journey?
No.
Fair enough.
No. But I think I feel that our audiences are ready. And I feel that the theatre has carved a space for these conversations. I think it remains as the only place, one of the few places where strangers can come together and sit together with people who do not necessarily think the same way as you or see the world the same way as you, but we watch something together, we listen, we lean in, we feel, we think, and then we have a conversation. This is rare, especially in today's age. And I think it's what keeps me going. It's what keeps Wild Rice going, because we feel a sense of mission to create a safe space for the difficult conversations.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, you brush up against, censorship, opposition. But I think when that happens, it just has to sharpen it sharpens your purpose.
Yes.
You really begin to think, who is this story for? Why does this story matter? And then you do whatever it takes to create a space where you can be free to do that.
Yeah. And I think for me, where that shone in the last few years was the Death of Singapore Theatre play.
Yes.
I saw that when it was in its first run, when Alfian did it, and then obviously it transferred to Wild Rice Theatre. Yeah. Just a stunning piece of theatre that really did provoke as well, and it provoked a conversation.
Yes.
I just do sit, and I think that's the whole point of the play, and go, I would have loved to have been in that room when that play landed on the desk of IMDA.
Yes.
I think my question really is, do you see yourself as an artistic director, as somebody who is responsible for starting these conversations? And is that something that you feel as a weight of when you're devising your seasons and when you're devising new works especially, how much of that is part of your mission to provoke or to hold a mirror? What part of that is your message as an artistic director?
I think as a leader, as an artistic director, my job is to hold space and also to hold people. And I try to make the artists that work, if an artist that works with a company feels safe, to take risks, then you are open to the wonderful surprises that they can come up with, this unique, individual points of view that make us sit up and go, oh, I didn't see this way. I didn't think about this way. And it's all about dialogue, right? I mean, for every view that is on stage, the theater basically, makes a drama out of it. There's an opposing view, and you are really at liberty to take either view. And the fact that both these views can, exist on stage gives us a clue as to how we can get on as a people, as a community. You can't scroll, in the theater, you can't scroll past discomfort.
No, very true.
Can't fast forward.
Yeah, you just
very true.
flip through it, but you got to sit there and think and feel. And I love it because it's rare, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think for me, the thing you've mentioned so much so far is community. And I think, that's where I fell in love with theatre as well. Just as you said, that first time in a rehearsal room and feeling that community of people around you and that safe space to play, to take risks, to have these shared ideas and be creative with. The joy of kind of that backstage and that creative side as artists fuels us.
Absolutely.
But I think the thing that maybe Wild Rice has now moved into, now you have your own space, is you are really a physical space now as well with your theatre.
Yeah.
How has that changed your day-to-day and your mission now, having this theatre space, not only the creative side, but now you're running a building and a theatre? I'm sure I reckon see your reaction there, but I'm sure it's completely changed. But I'm sure there's challenges, but also joys as well. So talk us through that.
In Gerbao Road, we were a staff of 15, and suddenly today we are a staff of 33.
Oh, wow.
Right? And Wild Rice as a theatre, we hire up to more than 500 freelance workers a year. Right? We have an operating budget expenditure of $8 million a year.
Wow.
But I mean, the beautiful thing about it is, we didn't build a theater and then try to think about what to fill it with. We built a theater for the work. It's purpose built, and we built the theater for the community that comes to the work.
I have to say, Wild Rice Theatre is my favourite theatre for exactly that reason. The closeness of the space I've always enjoyed. Even during the frivolity of the panto, where the panto stars, I'm thinking of Sugi. He was responding so much to the energy because we were in each other's orbit. That he was responding so much to the audience, and it was wonderful. But also again, I think back to Supervision and also God is a Woman. The audible gasps. That because you're in each other's space, and it's so intimate.
Yes, it is very intimate. I'll tell you a secret, right?
Oh.
So if you sit in the Wild Rice Theatre, there's only one armrest. Between people, not two armrests between each seat. So the audience is unconsciously touching. And this audience is keenly aware of each other. So when the audience comes into the Wild Rice Theatre, you see people looking around the theatre and waving at each other. And it really engenders community. And when one person across you is crying, you can bet your bottom dollar that you are also moved to tears. There is a real immediate sense of community. It really builds it so quickly. And on good shows, I swear to you, the audience has their heartbeats have start to synchronize. And they laugh and they heave and they cry. Like when we did Don't Call Him Mr. Marikita. It was so moving when Julian played, the Majula Singapura, that I actually had to dim the lights, just dim it slightly so that the audience could feel free to weep. And it was the most touching, moving rendition of the Majula Singapura ever, you know. And I think, that's what makes it. I don't know. That's the theater we built. I mean, everything, every detail, the size of the seats, the proportions, the height. We were actually given only 4th and 5th floors. But one day while sitting over cappuccinos with our acoustic director, he said, actually, we need a 3rd floor. We need volume for the place to sound really good, like a cathedral. So we went to meet Capital Land, and we convinced them to give us the 6th floor.
Wow.
So they moved out all the offices, and that's why we have the 6th floor.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I think sometimes you don't ask, don't get.
Indeed.
Don't get bank table.
How long did the build take?
2016. Wow. Was the and they tore down Funan in 2017. Quite fast. It was quite a miraculous conception. Yeah, I mean construction. Only in Singapore. But the goods lift that it's the first structure that was ever built on ground zero.
Wow.
Because we said we needed a lift, and the lift needed to be able to carry a grand piano. That's why you have a grand piano on stage, because we have a lift.
Yes, right.
And that's Wild Rice's lift.
Was the theatre always something you'd hoped to have, or was there the opportunity arose and you grasped it?
It was our 5th attempt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've been needing a theatre. It's odd in Singapore that theatre companies don't have their theatres. It's a bit, I think most theatre companies like in America or in the UK have their own performing space. So this, we tried so many things. I mean, in the early days, we even pitched for St. James Powerhouse.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we wanted to build this
That's a cathedral.
Yes, Well, we went, Wild Rice wouldn't be Wild Rice if it wasn't ambitious.
Yes, absolutely.
But then we had like theatre spaces in Kallang, and we arrived at the space. We were on the verge of signing a contract, and we arrived, and there's a pillar in the center of the performing space.
No.
So many thwarted attempts. And when Capital Land told us that they were going to tear down Funan and they would like a theatre, I mean, I just jumped at the opportunity, because it was exactly where I felt a theatre needed to be.
Yes,
right in the heart of the city.
Yes, quite.
In the civic and cultural district. And of course, they told me that they were giving me a theatre, 100-seat theatre in basement 2, shared between 2 companies, with 1 rehearsal space and an administration space for the office. And I was going, yes, let's go. And of course, I went home and I told Tony this, and he said,
We are not a black box company.
and we don't do basement 2.
Wow.
And he said, no, he couldn't make the sums work. He said, it needs to be a 300 to 400 seat theatre to make the sums work. We still need to raise money, but at least ticket prices will cover some of the costs. So he said, Ivan, what is the theatre of your dreams? What is it now? We're at this age where, we have to think about our legacy. What is it that we want to leave behind for Singapore? What is the legacy? And I said, I've always wanted, to perform and to, have a thrust stage theatre, because I've experienced, the Swan. And I love the No Theatre. I love watching the temple dances in Bali. I love the old Chinese tea houses. So actually the thrust stage also has very, very Asian antecedents in our history. And of course, the Greek theatre.
Yes.
And so we presented an outrageous proposal and an irresistible one, because we said, we can make this place a magnet, a hub. We can make this shopping center thrum with an energy and soul. And we did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, kudos to them. They came on board as a collaborator, and it's done great wonders for, I think, a community there. I don't feel like a shopper when I'm in Funan. I say hello to all the shopkeepers. I mean, when Tiong Bahru Bakery was there, it used to bake. It used to check our performance schedule. If there is a show on, they will bake $1,000 more of croissants a day.
Oh my goodness.
If there's a show on, because that would be the volume of
Yes, of
croissants
course.
and sandwiches they would sell. So it was really a win-win situation. I mean, God Mama is packed every show. It's a great restaurant. Oyster Bank is packed every time. You can't get a ticket, but it's nice to be part of a community.
There's something to be said about that. I mean, in the UK it used to be theatres, and then I'm showing my age now,
No.
it then became cinemas. Like cinemas became the place where all restaurants and bars and clubs would congregate around because there'd be a big movie, so it'd become a night out and have a dinner and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said that when you have something that can attract a lot of people,
Yeah.
there's that spillover that others benefit.
Yes.
So
definitely that knock-on effect.
Yeah, and you need to get bums in seats.
Bums in seats
to do that.
And I think that the magic of something like Theatreland in London. I love the first time I visited London. I think and this was at the grand old age of 28 at drama school. I just took a train down to London, and it blew me away because all the theaters were in such close proximity, and I love that moment when the theaters burst.
Yes.
Right, when all the audiences from all different theaters like explode onto the street.
Yep.
And that energy is incredible, right? That whole Soho Covent Garden energy of everybody discussing what they've seen. Yeah, I think that we could do it in Singapore. I wish we really really supported theatre in a way that you could have a show at the Victoria Theatre, at Waterloo Street. You have 2 theatres there. At Wild Rice, at Drama Centre. Think about it. We could have our own theatre land. But I think we got to build it together, and we need to invest in it together. And if you look at the SCB website, unfortunately, Singapore theatre is nowhere to be seen.
You know what? I've not even thought about that until you just mentioned it. But
Yeah, just buildings.
Yep.
The Esplanade, the Victoria Theatre, the, just the names of these spaces. But not theatre companies or theatres, Yeah. I'm not saying, I don't think we need to do theatre for tourists. I just think that if we want to keep our visitors here longer than 3 days, right? If they want to stay longer than Marina Bay Sands, Super Trees, what else?
Sentosa.
Sentosa, day 2.
Science,
Kampong Glam, day 3, get on plane, leave. That, you could actually catch a show and really understand Singapore.
What baffles me, though, I think it has been an aim. Like when I read the National Arts Council's aims every year, it is to be a hub in the region.
Yes.
It's listed every time.
Yes.
And I think like something as simple as that, as on the Singapore Tourism Board, just stating the companies and what's on, and posters on bus shelters. I remember when we did cabaret at Sing Theatre, we got sponsored for bus shelters, and suddenly everybody went, "Oh my goodness, Sing Theatre do this!" But it was because we were sponsored. It was like $100,000 of sponsorship or something. Like it was a lot.
And that's cool.
And of course, you see on the bus shelters all of the things at Marina Bay Sands, which is not local theatre, and touring theatres. And if we, local theatres could have the same visibility, then people would know. I think one thing I get most annoyed by, and I'm sure you see this, is sometimes people still don't know Singapore has local theatre. The amount of people I still speak to that have that opinion, and it shocks me. And I'm like, where is that? Like, where is that knowledge in school? And I think, companies do as much as they can, but I think it disappears somewhere. So for you, what are some things, like if you were top dog of National Arts Council, or if you could be in that position where you could put some initiatives, what would you do to help change that?
I would support companies more generously, so that they're not constantly worried, so that they can dream bigger.
Yes, right.
Right. I would get rid of censorship. I would trust artists, because it's already self-selecting, right? People who want to see a show or want to hear a story have to spend money to go to it. If you don't want to see this show or hear this story, don't come, right? So that you trust, so that artists can really, really go wild and excite people, and say things that will make your play, make your city the talk of the town. make theatre sexy, make Singapore sexy.
Yeah.
You know, I think, yeah, we have so much energy, you know, yeah, and so much talent. Yeah. Look, I would support a place like the Substation.
Yeah.
It closed down how long ago, and what's happened to that building? It's still empty. When we are scrambling for places to rehearse, what's happening? St. Joseph, you know, the Sam closed for how many years? Still empty. What's happening? It's as if so easy to find place for artists to rehearse, to exhibit. Why?
Yeah.
You know, support it, keep it going, trust, build together. I mean, really talk about, if you want to talk about placemaking, you know, make a place,
Yes.
make it buzz, commit to it. You know, yeah.
Has the culture pass impacted you since last year? Because I remember saying after the pandemic, there was all of the grants that everyone gave to get back to attractions and things,
Yes.
and I went, oh my goodness. Like, I remember saying this a few years ago. I don't know if anyone heard me and passed it on, but I remember, imagine if you gave $100 to say, come
Must
and
be
see local
you.
theatre. It must be. I'm claiming the idea.
Thank you, TJ.
No, but I remember saying then, what a great idea. And if only you could give that to come back to the theatre too.
Yes.
And at the time it wasn't there. But obviously now that is a thing.
It is a thing.
Is that something that you're finding is benefiting your shows? Are you seeing that kind of come through?
Absolutely. So many people came to the Emperor's New Clothes, right? I mean, that was the first one. The thing about it is, I question, right? Would someone who would have come to Emperor's New Clothes come anyway? And
I see.
you see, because then they don't have to spend $100, which they would normally have spent. You know, but then again, you know, you have the trust. But at the same time, I wish, like, you know, people would spend their culture pass and, you know, on another company other than Wild Rice. You know what I mean? I have $100 more. So I go and see the show by Wild Rice because every Christmas I see the show with Wild Rice. But maybe this time I'm going to see this show by the Necessary Stage. Or let's see what 9 Years Theatre is doing, or Theatre Akamatra is doing, or maybe give the opera people a try. That's a young, sexy company, you know? I think that would be really great. But in Singaporean, I don't know lah. You know, we got I got $100. I can spend it on the ticket that I would normally buy. You know,
that's a really interesting point. I'd not thought about it like that. But I think you know, it's great even if you get those couple of people in that, you know, use their culture pass.
Yes.
I mean, the aim of it is
Yes.
to get those couple of people in that never would have gone.
Yeah.
Then suddenly go, I'll go to the next 5 Wild Rice shows, or I'll, you know, I now have a taste for theatre, and you know, I think it is building audience.
yes. And I think we need to congratulate the ministry. Or MCCY for this scheme, and you know, and the NAC for this scheme, because it really did put money in that. It's no longer an excuse that you can't afford. You can go, so go.
Everyone loves a discount as well, you know,
Correct.
so, and everyone loves free money, and you want to
Correct.
spend their vouchers.
It's a great encouragement. The only question is now, when, you know, I think again there's now starting to be all these restrictions and rules. So I can share with you that the Christians has not been the culture pass has not been approved for the Christians. You see why?
And we come to the previous conversation.
Yeah.
once
So
more.
why? And you know, no reasons. I think we can do better.
And I just, which is a very dark rabbit hole going down censorship. I mean, we could talk all night about it, but I just think, can we not let, you know, Singapore is a very educated society now, you know, like, and we're not at a place where I think Singaporeans can make their own opinions and decisions. And it is
First world, progressive.
Exactly. And in a first world society, we should be allowing people to see both points of view and make an informed decision. And
it's only in seeing and understanding the world in all its complexity that we can nurture a mature audience.
Quite.
And we should do this. So we shouldn't try and mollycoddle our audience and nanny them, because we should give them agency to say, you know, you are at liberty to walk out.
Yes.
Yeah.
and make your choices. And, and if there is a complaint, let the theatre company deal with the complaint. We don't need IMDA to come in and, mediate, because we are well equipped to defend the work we put up. And, a theatre company lives and dies by its work.
Yes.
If it's a bad theatre company, you won't have an audience. Then you just die lah. Do you know what I mean? Like, if a theatre company is relevant, its work is resonating with the community, it's creating a civic space where, strangers can gather and become a community to leave as an audience, then, let that, thrive. Do you know? I mean, that's it, right? This said, I can understand our anxiety with regard to religion, with regard to race.
Yeah.
I think these are particularly, I think they're sensitive in Singapore, but I have to say that Singapore theatre has grown up with these issues. We have created spaces where we can have these issues discussed and, debated and, to kind of inspire conversation and thinking, right, beyond our own prejudices and our own biases, right? So I think we need more trust.
I agree. As a literature teacher,
Yes.
something that I love about literature is that it challenges my biases.
Yes.
Recently, I've read The Kite Runner, which I think would be it was a wonderful movie. I'd love to see it put on a play. I'd love to see it as a play.
Yes.
But it completely challenged my biases of Afghanistan that were nurtured, I'm going to say, by mainstream media.
Yes.
And this is what I love about literature, that it can challenge
Yes.
your thinking.
Yes. It opens a world that you have that you only have judgment of, right? Yeah, I think.
So, what stories do you want to tell next?
Oh. We have an exciting season coming up for you this year in 2026. The next show that we're doing is The Christians, which is a beautiful play. We always privilege, plays by local writers, but when a play like this feels so close to home, this play really talks about a community, a congregation that is being split apart by deep disagreement. And, you hear both sides of the argument, and you hear this community of believers being torn apart because they refuse to see each other's views.
Yeah.
I really felt I wanted to see that this play was our way of also, reflecting a Singapore that, that in which our religions are very visible and very lived. It's part of our experience, right? Our everyday living. And I think that, by trying to see how this community grapples with this disagreement to hold together, I think the play fosters empathy. Yeah, and I think that's well worth putting on. I think we've, you hear these little things on the web, and people are kind of, you're hearing these nasty kind of, accusations from people who haven't seen the play. But, I think we're just holding our ground and saying, please come, because this play does not denigrate any religion. I think this play is a meditation, is an opportunity to reflect on how something that we love so dearly can be so easily taken away from us. Yeah, and I think, when you belong to a community, it's not always just sunshine and daffodils and all lovey-dovey, I mean, you actually kind of, and to see a community, to see this congregation struggle with it and try and come together, gives us a clue as to how we can get on with one another
Yes.
better. Yeah. So that's the first play.
Again, community, you know, a
Community.
the
Community.
running theme. And I think for me, it's a big theme of modern day society that we see that
Yes.
headline or that tag on social media. You
Yeah.
see a link to an article and it's got a provoking title and you
Yeah.
go, that article is about this.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Christians, of course, it's going to be
Yeah.
negative about them. And actually, you've not opened up the article to
No.
read what's inside.
Oh, yes.
And how many times people share things like that these days? It is
Yeah.
it's a very modern problem, I suppose,
Yes.
because of the social media generation we live
Yes.
in. And but at the same time, how lovely that when people come to the theatre and actually see it and then start talking about it, and those conversations
Yeah.
then seep into the community.
Yeah.
Hopefully that changes people's perception.
Yeah.
But also, perhaps also, do you prescribe to the no
Non-believers?
media is bad media sort of thing, as in that conversations are starting about the play, so to speak, even if people are questioning its motive, people are
Sure.
talking about your theatre company
absolutely.
and your plays.
Absolutely. I mean, I hope it inspires people to buy tickets.
Of course.
Come watch the show.
Yeah.
You know, no, and the company is an excellent company, wonderful actors. You know, a choir,
Yes.
you know, fantastic,
Beautiful.
you know, gospel singing,
Oh.
yeah, and a band.
Wonderful.
So great,
right.
it's fantastic, yeah. So it's if you come on Sunday, it'll be like church.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So I've got a question, because I think for me, I've over my comparatively short career, I've worn many hats.
Yep.
I've done the producing, I've done the directing, I've done
Yep.
the performing, and I think, you know, I also started in the performing side of things as well.
Yep.
And absolutely love that moment on stage, but also the passion of putting your work out there and seeing it as a
Yep.
director, and then also making something happen and saying, you know what, let's just do this. Let's
Yep.
just make this happen because no one else is.
Yep.
That's why we started this podcast. There wasn't a
Yes.
podcast, and we
Thank
said, let's
you.
do that.
Yeah.
Which, this is probably an awful question to ask.
No.
Which of those hats, what do you get from each of those hats? I was going to say which of those hats inspires you most now, but that's a really unfair question, I feel.
what,
But the artistic director,
Oh.
the actor, like,
Okay.
do you value them all, or has it shifted through the years? Where are you at with those different roles in your life?
I wear them all. Yeah, I have quite a big head. No, okay, so as the artistic director, you are thinking, well, I'm thinking about a conversation and a dialogue that we are having with Singapore, you know, and all who live in Singapore. So if you come and watch a season, every play reaches out to a different sector of the community, but come and see it even if you're not part of the community, because you learn something about people who are not like you. And that's the Wild Rice audience. They come to everything. And because every show is done by different playwrights, different artists, different directors, different actors, you know, it's variety. So it's not like watching the same thing and I'm not on stage in every show. No, right? So that's the artistic director. As a director, I love the rehearsal room. I love being in a room with great actors and a script and a stage management team, you know, helping you come together and figure out what it is a play is trying to say and how you're going to try and deliver this message to an audience, and you anticipate that. You know, and you figure it out together. And the magic happens when the group of artists meets the audience, and in that exchange, you enrich the experience of being human. That's what being a director is for me. Telling a story, bringing everybody onto a vision so that you can deliver an audience. Right? It's deliverance. As an actor, I love the singular focus of stepping into someone's shoes, and in some cases, high heels or kasut mane, and just to try and understand the world, to walk in those shoes and understand their world and how to advocate for a character. You know, like even if you play a terrible, terrible father like the patriarch in Tartuffe, why he was driven to such madness to, cast out his family and destroy everything because of his blind faith, because he was being scammed. But, rather than playing him evil, I want to understand why, what drove him there, that fear, that anxiety, or when I play Emily, it's very easy to make her go all the way to England and scream at her son and, make him commit suicide, right? But I think for me, it was just trying to understand how my mother must have felt when I told her I didn't want to practice law. Those are her hopes and her dreams, and those are her fears that her son may not survive. I mean, you want to do theatre? There's no theatre company in Singapore. Why wouldn't you do theatre? How are you going to earn a living? Right? So I love all aspects of it. And I'm lucky to be able to do all. I love designing sets.
Yep.
Yeah, creating a frame and a space for actors to just, make them look good. Create an environment for a play. I love designing costumes. Yeah, I just dive in. But I'm lucky because I come from poor theatre, where you have your own theatre company and you're lighting the set and you're distributing flyers on the streets and you're making clothes and you're doing everything. I think that's how theatre can also. I don't want young people to specialize also, to try their hand at everything. Be a theatre maker.
Yeah, practitioner.
Yeah, everything. It's all there for the taking.
I think for me, part of being a practitioner is always learning. And you never know everything.
Yeah.
After all these years, what are you still learning?
Learning to listen. Learning to hold space, learning to hold people, learning empathy, learning, I think that's the way, I think theatre's great lessons, trying to understand why IMDA isn't giving me my license. Why this play got no funding? I'm trying empathy.
That brings me on to my next question. Something you mentioned earlier, and as you say, you're holding space. You mentioned 500 freelance creatives.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of an elephant in the room right now with the recent news of Pandemonium in their final season. And you and Tony did a wonderful post last month that sort of said, because a few of us, we even had the conversation as well, like, what does this mean for the rest of theatre land in Singapore? What does this mean for Wild Rice and for SRT, and then the smaller companies that we've gotten to know, like the Winter Players, and like, what does this mean for them?
Yes.
And then you did that wonderful post.
Yes.
What is the future of Singapore theatre, especially when you've got 500 individuals?
Yeah.
What do you foresee the challenges or the journey of Singapore theatre for the future?
I put up that post because I think many people were scared. If a big company like that can just suddenly disappear, and of course everyone's fear. I mean, I thought first and foremost about the actors. And the freelance work designers and directors and
stage
everyone,
managers,
stage managers, everybody, right? So we've lost a major employer, and I think I wanted to just say that I mean, it's not easy, right? I mean, but that we will survive. We have survived, and we are, as long as there is a will, there is a way. That has been theatre. We've survived COVID.
Yes.
Let's remember these things. We are strong. We are resilient. we have so much to look forward to. There's so much talent. There's so many young people, and let's not forget the old people as well. I mean, but there's just so much talent here, and we just, we can do theater on a shoestring. But as long as I think it will never die, because people will always need to come together to feel less alone, to feel part of a community, to sit with another human being, to feel, to think, to laugh, to cry, to be together. I think we will go on. Yeah.
And for you, Wild Rice, I heard you say it earlier that what is your legacy? And for me, what a phenomenal legacy you're still, it's not a legacy because you're still in it, but it is already there, what you've created with this phenomenal theatre company. And what I also see is that next kind of succession planning. You are nurturing those next actors, directors, future artistic directors, writers. I see that nurture as a big part of who you are and what you're doing. And for me, I think that's really interesting that for Wild Rice as a company, that's really obvious that that is what your journey is. And that isn't something that one day will turn around and go, Wild Rice, isn't here anymore. I think that's really clear. And I think has that been always a big part of what your next vision is as well?
Always. I mean, when I came back to Singapore, actually, when I joined SRT, I started the young company with Wendy Ng. So that was the plan. So when I then started Wild Rice, then Young and Wild was the first thing. But now we have, the academy for little tots from 5 to 11. Then we have the Singapore Youth Theatre from 13 to 17. We have Young and Wild from 18 to 30. We have A Little Wild, which is for primary school teacher. The wonderful thing is the graduates from the Singapore Youth Theatre are now old enough to be teachers at the Wild Rice Academy. So, it's already starting to happen. And when you think about performers like Shi An, for example, I mean, she was a first stage kid. There are many first stage kids who are also now, have taken on the profession, right? Actually, I have every faith that, I think when we started Wild Rice, we didn't start with certainty. We started with a belief. And the belief has built a community. And I think this is the same thing with the young. Invest in the future, and when the time comes, they will not only inherit Wild Rice, they will reinvent it. That's the plan. I want these young people to tell me I'm irrelevant. Not easy. but
No.
come create something new. Challenge us all.
I love that. I mean, for us, as teachers, we definitely resonate with that.
Oh, yes.
Like, education is how we keep this theatre alive. And, we all, for me, that was inspiration. I remember seeing Blood Brothers. That was my first ever musical I watched.
Wow.
And I still remember the moment, the lights going up from the ground at the very end and going, wow, there was just this overwhelming urge of, I have to do this for my career.
Wow.
And I think what you're producing at Wild Rice and what you're nurturing in the education and nurturing with the theatrical shows really is kind of inspiring.
I don't take credit. I mean, I think it is, the likes of Izzat El-Kaf and that whole team, Charlene Yong, Thomas Lim, that whole bunch who and all I say is yes, go. I mean, no, it really, it takes more than a village. I mean, I think I'm just so lucky to be working with the amazing bunch of wild, crazy people who want to make a difference,
Absolutely. I've got one last question for you, if you don't mind. What does Wild Rice mean? Where did it come from?
Yes, the name.
Rice is because theatre or the arts are not dessert. It's a staple. It's part of civic life. It's part of everyday life. It's not something you go to, because you're rich. No, I think it's when wars end, when people turn on their radios and dance on the streets. When prisoners are incarcerated, they writing poetry. Or they get out and survivors live to write and tell their story. So this is life. It's not dessert, because it's part of our civilization. It's part of being human. That rice, of course, is because, like, when I was in London, then 1 week I don't eat rice, then you feel very weak. Okay, so rice. Wild is quite an anathema to. Is the antithesis of Singapore, right? Which is very regulated, very rules-based and planned. But wild is something, that is extraordinary, that is, free and natural. Not GMO rice, rice from the ground, organic, and therefore resilient and strong. And if we dig deep and if we believe this is what makes us strong, the work of artists, the work of all who support artists, the community makes us strong. And it has come from the ground. Yeah.
That's inspiring. Absolutely inspiring.
Thank you.
Ivan, I can't tell you how wonderful it has been to have you in our studio.
Of course, the time has flown.
It has, but thank you so much. It's been wonderful to hear your story and the story of Wild Rice, and as you say, the community that it's built, the community that it nurtures, the community that it reaches out to. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's always wonderful having you at the theatre. Just so wonderful. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Ivan.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow, indeed. Oh my God, TJ. I enjoyed every single minute of that. Just to be in that man's stratosphere was such a humbling experience. I mean, what that man has created, you could just see that the man lives and breathes and thinks theatre from morning, noon, and night. You could just see that. Do you know what I loved the most? Is that when he was talking, when he was describing his journey, you could see the memory.
Yes.
You could really see, and I bet his brain was going a million miles an hour of just nostalgia, pure nostalgia of memory of, he said, what was it? The dozens of plays and productions that they've done. And you know this better than anyone, like, when you put on a production, you have backstage antics, somebody breaking their knee because they jumped.
Yes.
You have the highs and the lows, and those memories stay with you forever. And you could see the mind processing that memory, and it was really wonderful to see, and just the authenticity and the love behind what he's created. Loved every minute of it.
No, and I think, it would be so easy, because we all know Ivan. He's a celebrity, and you never quite know when you're going to interview someone who's had such a wealth of career and such fame and built such a wonderful company. What angle, what attitude they're going to come in. Now, I've met Ivan a few times, outside of the spotlight as well. But what was really, it's not surprising, but may surprise our listeners, is how the focus of everything he does is community.
Oh, yes.
Because that's a really buzzword, because, it's like an NAC goal. It's, in Singapore, and we talk about the theatre community and everything. But you can tell when someone is blagging you about that. And you can tell when it's actually embedded in everything that they do.
Yes.
And that really is embedded for him in everything he does. It's about creating works that really impact the Singapore community and the theatre community. And what are we trying to say? And I think ultimately in this theatre landscape in Singapore that we have right now, where we're worried about will Singapore theatre continue? Will it survive? And with the closure of, a big theatre company coming up, and the worries of other theatre companies, will we survive? If we focus on the community, and that's what he was trying to say, that if you do focus on the community, and it's not about yourself, it's not a solitary, it's about me, or it's about the high art that we want to produce because we want to produce this. If you focus on what does the community need to hear, what do they need to see, what stories are they wanting to tell, if you think that way backwards rather than I want to do this, or I'm this, or this is what I want to produce, it's ultimately those companies that will survive and thrive.
Yes.
Because Wild Rice is thriving.
Yes.
Gosh, it's amazing the work that they're doing. And I think that above all, we know this about creating community, or even just in our open mic.
Yes.
It's not about us.
No.
it isn't about us.
No, not at all.
It is about the community that we foster, and that's also ultimately our aim of the podcast as well. So Wild Rice will live on, and it's really clear to see that it will live on, and there is a succession plan, and we're not going to get a message randomly saying that they're shutting down. And that's because that passion of community that runs through everything he does is there and will be there in that community he's fostered that will take over and be that next generation.
I am so glad he gave it a number, which I thought was fascinating. I would never have thought of that number, but he said 500 freelancers are involved in Wild Rice, and make a living off of it. And it reminds you that it does take a village, as he said. There are so many people that are involved in the art that we see on the stage, and it's so easy to forget that. You can forgive an audience for not remembering that there was an army of people that made costume or put music together or designed lights or made the set. It's so easy to forget, but there was an army of people behind that production, whatever production it is, and we should remember that, because as the humility of the man, I absolutely love it. He said they are the ones that are driving it forward, that are driving forward the theatre of Singapore.
And I'm so glad we left the question to the end about what does Wild Rice mean. I've never even thought about it. I've never thought to ask. I've never thought to search. And that theatre is a staple, something you can't do without.
And it's so true.
And the fact it's wild.
Yes.
That's what they do. They push the boundaries. They take risks. And it is that theatre company that has a language for Singapore. And it's not the Singapore Wild Rice, or it's not Ivan Heng's Wild Rice. This is Wild Rice for Singapore, with Singapore stories at their heart.
Yes.
And that's what excites me. I think that's what excites me when I see a Wild Rice show. And we really got to see that in this interview. And I will remember this conversation for a long time to come.
Oh, entirely. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you so much. Right, my tea's gone cold, love. Shall we leave it there?
Let's.
So it's cheerio from us. We'll be back soon.
And it's hurrah from me.
And to everyone working in Singapore theatre,
break a leg.